Hello and welcome to TEPSA Explainers. I'm Martina Ferracane and I'm a research fellow at the European University Institute. In today's video, I'm going to talk about digital trade regulation. And I think this is very important for all of us because it affects the way in which the internet works and therefore the way in which we use the internet to work, to buy goods or services online or just for leisure. The main point that I would like you to take away at the end of this video is that we need more empirical research to inform policymakers when they do regulation on digital trade. And this is important because these policies need to achieve their objectives, so they need to protect privacy and security of citizens, but also we have to avoid that these policies become a restriction for companies or on an open internet. Let's start by defining digital trade. I think if we want to have a broad definition of digital trade, we have to include four main pillars. The first one is ICT goods, intermediate inputs and raw materials for ICT goods. So not only smartphones and computers, but also semiconductors and chips that need to be used to create computers, and raw materials which are used as inputs for these chips. The second pillar is online services. This pillar includes all those tradable services online, for example, using your phone for accessing your bank, but also all those services which can only be traded online, for example, social media, email accounts, cloud computing, etc. The third pillar is investment, so Mode 3 in trade jargon. This includes investment in all these areas which are needed to conduct trade online. So telecommunication sector, this is very important, computer services, but also manufacturing of ICT products. And finally, data. Data can be an input for services, can be an asset traded itself, and is also the way through which services are provided. So these four areas, I think, are very important when we look into digital trade and we want to regulate the digital economy. Over the past decade, what we are seeing is that, unfortunately, we are seeing a staggering increase in the amount of policies which are regulating digital trade. This is, of course, important because digital trade is becoming more and more pervasive. But also this is creating a spaghetti ball of regulations that each company has to deal with when trading in different countries all over the world. Who is imposing these restrictions and what policies are imposed? We, luckily, in the past years have different initiatives by think tanks, academic institutions and international organizations which are starting to track all those measures and who is imposing these policies. The first initiative in 2018 by ESIPE, which is a think tank based in Brussels, maps regulatory policies in 64 countries. And what they find is that the most restrictive countries when it comes to digital trade regulation are large emerging economies. For example, China, Russia, India, Indonesia and Vietnam. On the other hand, they also find that the small service-oriented economies are those that are more open to digital trade and therefore less restrictive. These include New Zealand, Iceland, Norway, or Hong Kong, for example. More recently, a study by the Global Trade Alert together with the Digital Policy Alert found over 15,000 policies and regulatory measures that were registered only in the years 2020 to 2022. So in 2 years, over 15,000 new regulatory measures that have to do with digital trade. In this case, they don't look only at restrictions, but generally any kind of policy in this area. And they find that continental Europe and the United States are the most active actors in this area. And finally, we have a new initiative which has just been launched at the European University Institute, an initiative which brings together academic institutions, for example, the London School of Economics, ERTI School and Bocconi University, but also think tanks, ESIPE, and international organizations, the Digital Cooperation Organization, and 3 regional commissions of the UN, the Commission for Asia and the Pacific, the one for Latin America, and the one for Africa. In this new initiative, which is called the Digital Trade Integration Project, we mapped regulatory policies in over 100 countries globally. What we find are similar results. Again, we find small service-oriented economies being very integrated when it comes to digital trade. On the other hand, large emerging economies still tend to impose their own rules on the internet, creating barriers towards digital trade integration. What we find, interestingly, in our study and also in the previous studies is that there is a rising regulatory heterogeneity. So we see a lot of divergence across different countries, with the major economies, the European Union, the United States, Russia, China, which want to impose their own rules on digital trade. And this is when the problem starts for businesses. While it is obvious that governments should have the right to regulate, it is also important that this regulation does not create unnecessary restrictions on the internet and on companies that want to trade globally. And that's why we need more empirical research in this area that can inform policymakers on those policies that are most effective in achieving the wanted legitimate policy objective of countries, but also at the same time allows an alignment across countries so that companies can deal with a smaller set of rules when trading online. For this, on top of empirical research, it will be also important to have open, multi-stakeholder, regional, plurilateral or multilateral platforms so that countries and different stakeholders can meet and discuss what are the best standards for the future. In this way, we can hope to have a better environment for digital trade, which is predictable and also safe.